So talk me through your thinking behind this.
Okay, so thank you very much. System. So first, I touch on the context, the urban mobility challenge in Accra. So I think I'll just read shortly what is written in here, then I proceed to like explain a bit into details to what the reasoning behind it. So Accra represents a growing class of African cities where economic activity is rising faster than infrastructure that can support it. Daily community has become one of the most persistent inefficiencies affecting productivity and quality of life. But it gets across key residential hubs. So these key residential hubs are basically hubs in Accra, that's Adenta, Madina, and Tema, commutes towards central business district like Ashimota Airport and Accra Center, under conditions defined by firstly severe and prolonged traffic congestion. And this severe and prolonged traffic congestion has a lot of factors going on. We might not be able to tackle all of them, but the ones we can tackle is what I would explain in subsequent like topics. So the second is unpredictable and inconsistent commute times, high cumulative transportation costs, and poor coordination of transport supply and demand. Despite the volume of daily movement, transport systems remain largely unstructured, resulting in both overcrowding and underutilization. The problem is not just a lack of transport, but it's a lack of coordination. So, given the current nature of transport systems in Accra, to be precise, we notice that, um, as I mentioned, several other factors like traffic control systems, poor road networks, all contribute to the um, rise in traffic congestion. But the other side of it that most people don't actually talk about is the increase in ride-hailing services and also the private-owned cars on the roads. People would prefer these two options compared to the busing system or the local traditional transport because of how uncomfortable or inconvenient it can be. You spend long time in traffic. Transport fares can be monopolized depending on the time of the day, especially when it is um, high traffic times, like in the morning or in the evening too. At the same time, too, comfort is a problem or it's a question mark. You will pay the actual fare, but unfortunately, you can be told to actually sit next to someone when even the person's like is actually full. Like that's how the level of like monopoly that can happen when you're in the person system too. Then the intervention is designing a structured mobility system. So with UrbanLink mobility, was developed as a route-based scheduled carpooling system designed to introduce structure into daily commuting flows. So rather than relying on demand, ride hailing, or the informal transit, UrbanLink operates on three core principles. The first one is predictability. So once again, there are hot areas in quotes during rush hour periods, but the inability of drivers to predict where exactly is these rush areas happening causes some of them to be just loitering on the streets, hoping or aiming to get customers, whereas where cars are actually needed, people will not be found in there too. So with the coordination, so the second is the efficiency, optimize seat utilization. With UrbanLink, you'll be able to predict the number of seats in a bus. And unlike the what's happening with the traditional one, you just leave it to hope or leave it to fate that once you get there, there will be a bus. Imagine yourself stressing yourself after work, walking a long distance to catch a bus. Then once you get there, it's full. With UrbanLink, you would because you are pre-booking, you know that eventually, no matter what, there's a seat waiting for you to. Unlike the others, and coordination, aligning of commuters with similar travel patterns. So initially, we were focusing mainly on companies to come on board so that we can get the employees to do that. But we realized that one big problem is most companies in this side of the world do not necessarily care how their workers get to work. Theirs is their workers have gotten to work before 8 a.m., then work starts. Then we changed our approach. How did we come across this? Because we connected the survey, and from the survey, we realized like this particular like shock, culture shock actually. And I'll explain more to it in the latter parts too. Then we started channeling our energy to community. So fortunately for us in Accra, there are some firstly gated communities and there are some naturally gated communities. So there are some natural communities in Accra. So a place like Adenta, for instance, is like a community on its own. So they have like a community hospital, they have a community school, they have like a community church, those kind of stuff. So like it's actually a community, but it's not gated necessarily. So places like this, we have people coming from Adenta to main districts, business districts like Accra Central. So our approach is now instead of doing original business to business, we rather go business to customers. So we work directly with these customers, and because they are all staying in the same location, they are most likely going to have colleagues working in the same district, business districts. Then we pick them up, then we move them. So that will help align commuters with similar travel patterns too. So this transformation coming from a reactive process into a planned system of movement. So if the community process is really planned, people will not have to react because they will know what to be doing. And let's give you a case where worst case scenario, the bus going from Adenta to Accra in a particular morning has broken down maybe around 4 or 5 a.m. Because we are actively working on it or it's a plan system, we can always communicate to our customers that oh, there will be a delay because of one or two reasons. Unlike on the other side, where after the let's say with the reactive part or the local traditional buses, once you go there and it picks you up and it breaks down maybe in the middle of the road, there is no backup or there is no situation, and you'll be left stranded in there too. So UrbanLink is seeking to solve such an issue too. Then the system design or how UrbanLink works. So UrbanLink introduces a structured flow of daily transport to reduce the uncertainty. So firstly, commuters will get to select their predefined route. Seats are booked in advance, one time or recurring, depending on the customer. Pickups occur at fixed stops along optimized corridors. And drivers operate on assigned schedules. And lastly, users confirm participation prior to dispatch. I added a user flow. The user flow is basically like the user interface and the user experience of how to book your ride and access the bus when the bus arrives at your place too. So, as I said, with the system design, you know the route you are going in, so there's no fear of the bus using a route you are not common or familiar with. And another, I think, addition is that, which is not here, is that because I know all the commuters are going to a particular location, even when there's a traffic, the driver can or is allowed to actually use the best and fastest route of getting to our location rather than being in the traffic the whole or entire time too. Then because seats are also booked in advance, it is predictable. You know your seat is secured. Then there are pickup stops. So you only stop where people have to either get down or people have to board. If the bus is full, definitely no one is stopping or the bus is not stopping. Unlike that in the local or the traditional busing system, the driver can still get in there too, and you will be allowed, should I say, a grace period. So let's say at every defined bus stop, we are giving customers maybe 5 to 7 minutes to report to the bus stop for pickup. If you fail to report the bus stop for pickup because you are paying before and you fail to show up, it's going against you. We wouldn't be able to wait because we're also working with people who wish to get to their um, destinations quite earlier too. Then drivers operate on scheduled, assigned schedules, and also users confirm participation prior to dispatch. So there is a QR code that will be generated once a user is done booking and making payment, so that once you get there to we will verify whether you are supposed to be on the bus or not. Unlike traditional buses, you just go there, you pay as you go. I would continue from the real world application pilot selection. So I mentioned that a place like Adenta is the ideal situation for our residential areas because it's not a gated community necessarily, but it's actually a community on its own. As I mentioned earlier, it has its own infrastructure like the necessary social amenities like a community school, both for private schools and like government school. It has its own churches, its own hospitals, and because it's a community, majority of people also head towards one particular direction, one particular area. That is the business district in this case. So this corridor was selected due to high commuter density, strong residential to business flow, and consistent peak hour demand. I'll attach some images initially to the draft, but it's not visible on the screen. You would have seen as at, I think when I took this picture, it was around 8:50 p.m. and you could see the commuter or the peak hour demand on that particular route too. So, and this moves me to the early validation signals. So, UrbanLink has actually begun validating demand through early stage initiatives. So I mentioned that we surveyed about 1,029 people across 25 companies and 4 business districts. And the responses were actually interesting. Most people, their problem was reliability. About 97% of the people who responded to this had an issue with reliability, meaning they are unable to predict where buses or these buses are at the time they need it the most. And UrbanLink is actually solving that issue through their um, pre pre-booking system actually too. Then we've been able to launch a waitlist platform to capture early adopters too. I think Tabs projected it earlier too. So the idea behind the waitlist platform is to once we have our systems in check, that is the fleet systems, that like the passing and all ready. Instead of right then getting to it and having like a mobile app working, you would be having like a community outreach in Adenta. That's our ideal location. Then we get people to sign up or register. We reach out to them manually to begin with. Then once we're able to get our first set of people, we test it out like maybe a week and see how it goes. Then moving forward, you can now have like an integration of a website fully functioning and a mobile platform also fully like functioning too. But as I said earlier, for our pilots, we'll be using waitlist. So usually we'll be working both on a tech side and also like a manual side too. Then identification of initial commuter classes along pilot routes too. So from our pilots, we'll be able to identify which areas within the community we've even defined have a lot of maybe corporate people or corporate workers, and maybe other business locations or business districts we could also have a look at. Maybe we can notice that this is aside people going to Accra Central. Hello, Taps, am I audible?
Yeah,
Yeah, we can notice that probably aside people going to Accra Central, we realize that maybe we have like a customer base also moving to Circle, like Market Circle of Accra. That's another district, a business district. Then from that steady and monitoring that we will be doing, we can also now realize, okay, probably our next focus will be people moving to the Market Circle too. That's like the idea behind having like community outreaches and studying these people for the pilot phase too. Then with our economic model, that's aligning incentives, we are going B2C. And I give a reason as to that. Most companies are not willing to come on board with this approach because they feel their workers will be fine or their employees will be fine, whether they have like a supporting company like ours without be moving them to and fro. But if you ask the workers from our survey that we conducted, most people are actually looking forward for such like a scheduled ride for coming to work and going back to the house. So we'll be working directly with the customers to end. Per ride pricing will be around 12 to 25 cedis, depending on the area will be going to. Subscription packages for recurring users. So probably we'll be working on like a weekly subscription or a monthly subscription. But we are most likely going to start with a weekly subscription because it's work and people tend to go to work like for a greater part of the month, except maybe when they are on leave and maybe there are holidays in there too. Then corporate transport contracts. So if you're able to get corporate workers to come on board, in the long term, you'll be looking forward to partner with like companies this time because we've been able to prove that their workers actually need our system to be more effective at their workplace. And so it will be easier selling to companies to now come on board to have something maybe covering for their. I know some companies have like company buses, but per my research, I realized that most company buses do not even go a bit like for certain long distances. Where I used to work during like I think about 2 years, it was a hospital. They had a bus. It just brings you to the main road. Then from there on, you are to yourself. However you get home, it's up to you. But if you're able to have a system like that, we could be able to help them. Now instead of just using the company buses, they can also we can also come on board and go for like a longer distance to help their customers and driver revenue sharing model. So we are open to have like drivers who have their own buses to come on board to make money. And as they are making money, a percentage would be coming to our end. And UrbanLink exists as the intersection of three systems. So I've mentioned about three operational system current operational system. We have the informal transits, commonly known as the church or the traditional buses. We have the ride hailing platforms or ride hailing services. Then you have the corporate staff transport. And I think for my presentation, I've been able to pinpoint the disadvantage of using each and every one of them, whilst also the advantages of using them, these three of them. So UrbanLink is basically we are positioning ourselves as a new category of urban mobility infrastructure rather than just another transport service. So we would be incorporating like an intersection of these three. So what the traditional buses can't do, we should be able to do. An example of that is comfort and being the reliability and assurance that you would have your bus and you also have your seat ready and the bus ready for you when you are ready to move. Ride hailing platform, what we are looking for it to curb is expenses. Like it can be very expensive during rush hours. Hours will be more affordable compared to the corporate staff transport is overly biased in the sense that it just caters for a particular company. So meaning if the company is having like a few number of staff, then additional expenses will be gotten by the person. But with ours, we'll be working with several other companies. So several other companies having their workers on board, moving to one particular area. A community can actually be created out of this. And because they are corporate people, idea sharing, it's even an opportunity or a platform to network with each other rather than having like a one particular company on board too. And as I said, most corporate staff transport, they don't go certain distances because their company, they have like a very diversified employees coming on board too. When I say diversified, I mean when it comes to their residential areas. Unlike if you are maybe to have rather a number of maybe 5 companies having employees staying in the same neighborhood than the vice versa of it too. Then the forward part, UrbanLink's next phase includes pilot deployment on selected routes. So as I mentioned, Adenta to Accra Central is the route we've chosen to start with. Expansion into additional corridors. So we can even be at Adenta and still explore other business districts. Like as I mentioned, we have people going to Market Circle. We have people who would be going to probably the likes of like La Paz and Kaswa, which are all like business districts too. Then corporate onboarding too. Once we're able to prove to companies that our system works and does increased productivity at workplaces, having corporate bodies on board, like the companies actually on board, would be much easier. And system optimization through data. So depending on the feedback we're having, probably we could allow drivers to even go maybe twice in the morning or 3 times in the morning as compared to just like once in the morning as we are starting with too. So by the data we will get, be able to like, and of course there will be feedback forms from our first set of customers to know what exactly would be better. I think one time I was just sitting down randomly and thinking that what is the best way to get a corporate worker to calm down, like in a ride going home. And I noticed that something as simple as a bottle of water shared on the ride could actually improve customer experience because, of course, after work, most people are actually thirsty or hungry. The best way you can show appreciation to them is like giving them water, playing jazz music, buses or local buses are particularly noisy. Most people would be involved in arguments and unnecessary chaos in the buses. Sometimes to just like quietness or peace and calm. Calmness is actually what they would need. So all these can go into it, all these can factor it through data or like through feedback too. So that's basically like the long term. So in long term, the model can also scale across African cities facing similar transport challenges. So per my research with my team, so we actually a group of three, myself, Eko Haden, I'm the founder, and I'm working more on like the marketing and a bit of the operational. We have James Foley, he will also be working on operational and the financing part. He's has a background in finance and accounting. Then I have Maunyo Afunyo, who is I would basically say the tech guy. He's a full stack developer too. So from our research too, we noticed that we've identified two countries, like African countries, that are running something similar to ours. That is in Kenya, but Kenya's one is focusing more on intercity. The one closest to our model is in Nigeria. So we are understudying these two um, companies and also their models for running their businesses. So we know that long term, we should come out as one of the best, if not the only um, the only preferred choice for corporate commuting. So thank you very much.